So for our first model, let's begin with something pretty straightforward, like a couch, just a sofa. So I'm going to go here into Google and just type old couch, and let's see what we can find. Something that's just kind of run down, kind of like this. That's not bad, but I'm not fond of these arms right here. This is a little too much, I think. But this is kind of what I'm looking for. Something really ugly like this. Oh, this actually looks just about right. Oh yeah, that is truly awful. So let's go ahead and grab that. So I've got my folder here. I've got a folder for reference images, so I'll just call this sofa. So there we go. So that's the one we're going to do. Perfect. All right. That was easy. What I usually do when I'm trying to model something like this is I'll create a new window right over here. Just pull this tab down to create a new window, and let's change it to a UV image editor. And in the UV image editor, we'll click open, and I'll go find that file that I just downloaded in reference images, and there it is. Now if you can't find it, you can always click on this little button right here, and that'll give you a preview of each of the images. But this is the one I want. Open image, and there we go. So now I have it kind of here in front of me as I work. Once again, I think reference images are hugely important for anything you're doing. Alright, so I'll go to a new layer right down here and begin fresh. I think first what I'll do is maybe work on this piece down here, right down here, so just to kind of establish the size of it right here. So I'll go to the Create tab, click on Cube, and let's start getting this in place. So I'm thinking that this will be about maybe like this. And I'm just hitting S and Y, and then S and X to scale a bit. Just trying to get a general sense of what this is going to look like. Kind of how big it's going to be. We can always adjust the proportions as we go, but it's good to get it just generally in the right size and shape. Maybe a little bit more out in the X. Something like that. All right. So now that we've got that, let's start working on the arms here. Once again, I'm going to create a new cube. Just click Cube. I'll scale it down a bit, and I'll move it to one side. And let's scale it in the Y, SY. And try and get this one in place as well. Now I'm going to hit the 3 key on the number pad, and that will pull me around to the right camera, and then I'll hit the 5 key, and that gives me the orthographic view. And let's just move this into place, maybe a little bit narrower, something like this. So let's say it's going to be above that, right about like that. I'm looking at this here. So here's this piece, something like that. It may need to come up just a little bit more, something like that. So I'm just trying to work out the basic details here. Let's grab this face, hit that 3 key, and pull that down to right about here. Yeah, I think that's going to work out. I may want to pull this up just a little bit more. So it's just a matter of trying to get it as close as you can to your reference image at this point. So now I can maybe hit the 1 key and go back to object mode with the tab key and hit S and X, and then scale this out just a bit like that. Alright, so I'll spin it around, and so we're beginning to get that basic shape. I'm going to hit the 5 key to go back to perspective mode. And maybe I'll pull these up just a little bit like this. Alright, so I'm going to grab this one, hit that 7 key, 5 key to go to orthographic view, and I'm going to duplicate this arm and bring it over to the other side. So I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, and then I'm going to hit the Y key, and now when I move it, it's going to constrain that object to the Y axis. There we go. All right. Now we need to work on that back part. Now it's kind of hard to see what's going on back there, but I think what I'll do is I'll just grab this and press Shift D to duplicate it and hit Enter to keep it where it is. And then I'm just going to move it back and rotate it around the Y axis. Now if I hit the N key, you can see up here the rotate fields here. If I hit R and Y to rotate around the Y axis here, I'll hit R, Y. Now I can rotate around that axis and I can see the degrees changing up there in the Y rotation field. So I'm going to bring it up to around, I don't know, around -90 here, let's say, and I'll type in -90. So there we go. And let me hit that 1 key and 5 key, and I'm going to bring this up, put it back here a bit, like that. Now I want to scale it out in the Y, SY. And now if I tab into edit mode and grab that face, I'm going to bring it down to where the top of the arm is, because I think this top part kind of angles back. So if I hit E to extrude and pull up a bit, and then maybe lean it back just a bit like that, and even rotate it a smidge, maybe that'll work. Let's try that. Something like this. Okay, so we're beginning to get the shape of the couch there. We need pillows, right? We need pillows here. So it looks to me, it still looks to me like it's a little bit not quite long enough. So I'm going to select all these here and press S and Y and scale out just a bit. That's looking a little bit better, I think. Now I'll hit the A key to deselect, and this time instead of going to the Create tab, I'll press Shift A and I'll choose Mesh and Cube. Now I'm going to bring this up, and this is going to be the first cushion. I'll press S and Z and scale that down a bit. And let's bring this right down here. And if I go to the top view, and I'm going to hit the Z key to go to wireframe, and I want to scale this out in the Y and the X, but not the Z. I want to keep it the same thickness, but I want to scale it out in the Y and the X. So to do that, I can press S for scale, and then I can press Shift and Z, and that will cancel out the Z axis, so I'm only scaling in the Y and the X. So maybe something like this. Now SX. There we go. All right. Now I'm going to hit the 5 key again. Now let's see if we can get these in place. I'll press Shift D and Y. Move these over here. Looks like I need to bring them in just a bit. SY, scale in. SY, scale in. Just a little bit. Now duplicate and Y and bring that over here. Okay. So that is the basic shape. Now we need these pillows up here. So I think what I'll do is I'll just grab one of these again, like this, and I'll duplicate it, press Enter, and I'll just bring it up, rotate it around the Y, RY, and then maybe scale this in the Z axis. But now that I've angled this, if I hit Z, if I scale in the Z axis with S and Z, it's going to scale not quite the way I want it to. I want it to scale in line with the object, not straight up and down. So I can always switch from global transformation orientation to local right here. Now you can also do that by pressing Alt space, and then you get this orientation menu, and you can switch from global to local here as well. But if you notice, when I did that, the transformation gizmo here now is aligned to the object. So now I can switch to scale, and I can scale this in a bit, something like that. Now I want to move it back, straight back, and to do that I'll switch back to global, so Alt space, global. And one thing I've done here is I've added some extra keyboard shortcuts so that I can switch from the move gizmo to the rotate gizmo to the scale gizmo here very easily. So the way I have it set up is I press Control Alt left arrow to go to the move manipulator, and then I press Control Alt down arrow to go to the rotate manipulator, and then Control Alt right arrow to go to the scale. So it's you may see me doing that quite a bit. Now the way you change this, the way you set up a new keyboard shortcut for yourself is up here under File and User Preferences. And you can go into here and go into Input, go to 3D View, 3D View Global, and then if you scroll all the way down, you'll see you've got this Add New. And if you click that Add New, what you can do is create new shortcuts. So you can see here that I've done that 3 times. I clicked Add New, and then I put this View 3D .enable underscore manipulator, and I chose the left arrow, Control and Alt, right? And then I did the same thing here with the down arrow, Control and Alt. Now each one of these does something right here. You can see under Translate, I've got Translate checked here, I've got Rotate checked here, and I've got Scale checked here. So you can create your own keyboard shortcut to switch between one manipulator or another, because Blender doesn't really give you by default the ability to switch the manipulator using a keyboard shortcut. All right, I'm going to close this down, and let's keep going with our couch here. I think I'll rotate that just a little bit like this. And it doesn't look like it goes up quite that high, so maybe I will scale it a little bit here, down just a little bit like that, and maybe a little bit in. I don't think it needs to be quite that thick. There we go. Something like that. All right, I'll go ahead and duplicate this. So I'll go back to the move manipulator, press Shift D, and I'll hit Enter, and then I'll just drag this over to here. And once again, it looks like I've got it a little bit askew there now, doesn't it? Let me press R and Z, and sure enough, I've got it kind of cattywampus. Let me see if I can fix this one a bit here too. There we go. And I'll zero out the X as well. There we go. All right, so now that I've got the basic shape here, I think one last thing I want to do is put some feet on here. I think what I'll do is just create a couple of cylinders. I'll come up here to the Create tab and I'll click on Cylinder, and that'll pop that into here. I don't think I need 32. Maybe I'll just do 12 sides. And for the cap fill, you can choose either N-gon or triangle fan or nothing. And I think I just want nothing there, so I'll scale that down. Hit the 3 key and the 5 key to go to orthographic view, and I'll just move this right over here. Something like that. That still looks a little too high, so I'm going to hit the Z key, and then to border select this whole group of objects, I'm going to press the B key and click and drag, and that will just border select all of these. Now I can just move them down. There we go. Now for this, I'll go ahead and duplicate it. I'll go to the top view and move it forward a bit, like this. Maybe it can be right about here, like that. And then I'll duplicate and press Y, and then move this up to here. And then I'll select them both and press Shift D and then X, and we move these back here like that. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is begin selecting some of these areas, and maybe using the subdivision surface modifier, I'll start giving these a little bit of a curve. So I can come over here to the modifiers panel, and if I click add modifier and subdivision surface, it kind of collapses into that. And that's kind of ugly. But that's okay. If I hit the tab key, we can see there's the original mesh of the object. So what I can do is press Control R to add an edge loop, and I'm going to bring it over here, and I'll scroll the mouse wheel once and then click again, and that gives us that. And I'll then do the same thing vertically, but this time I'll take these two edges and I'll press S and Y and I'll scale them out like this. And maybe I'll press Alt and click, so that'll select that whole edge loop all the way around. And I'll press Alt and Shift and click. And you can see if I hit the Z key, that selected those edges all the way around. So now I'm going to press S and Z, and that'll scale this up a bit. There we go. Now I think I'm going to press this View arrow right here to give it a little bit more of a curve there. I think I'm going to add a couple of edges right in here, and maybe one more right in there. We'll be applying this to make this geometry permanent, but for now let's see how it's going to look. Let's start doing that with one of these over here. So I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier, take it up to 2, let's say, and let's start adding a few edge loops here. Yeah, maybe 3, S and X, and scale those out a bit. And let's maybe add 3 here, S and Z, and scale those up a bit. There we go. And looks like I've got those edges a little too close, doesn't it? Let me Alt click this edge and bring it down just a bit. And maybe Alt click this edge and bring it back just a hair. Something like that. Maybe I'll add one right down the middle there to kind of hold that. Alright, let's take a look at these here now. I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier. Same process. So we get a little bit of a curve to it. And I'll take a look at this one too. I'll do the same thing for this one. Subdivision surface, 2 views, and let's add a few edge loops here. Now this time, once again, I'll go back to local mode and scale in the X like this. And this over here, I'll scale in the Y. All right. And this part right back here, this kind of looks like I could soften this up a bit too. Now I used all of these pillows as kind of just placeholders to get a sense of the size of this thing. I'm going to go ahead and just delete these because I don't need them right now. I'm going to use these to try and get these the right size and shape. So I'm going to go ahead and scale this out just a hair, and maybe even take this, add an edge in here, and then scale this out just a little bit. So I'll press S and Shift Z to make sure it doesn't scale in the Z. I guess it wouldn't, would it? It's only an edge, so it wouldn't scale in the Z anyway. I'll go ahead and take this point and just move it up just a hair. Others I'll move down and kind of beat up the edges a bit. This down here I think I could scale in the Z and maybe move up a bit so it kind of pushes up against that. So they look a little bit like cushions. And I'm just trying to scale and place this as best I can. I'll hit the scale and Y to move that out a bit. There we go. So now let's go ahead and smooth these. I'm going to go up to the Tools tab here, and right down under Shading we have a Smooth button, and we can kind of take care of some of this blockiness or faceting here with this Smooth button, kind of like that. That gives us a little bit of a smoother look to the object. Something like that. All right. This looks a little, let me move this back some. I just added an edge loop there. And I think I'm going to scale this out just a bit and move it this way a little bit so it kind of intersects with that. There we go. So now let me go ahead and duplicate these just to take a look at how it looks. Duplicate and then Y. All right. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think maybe I want to make this arm just a little bit taller, so S and Z. Maybe something like that. If I look at it here in the front view with 3 key, or the right view with the 3 key, and then move that up just a bit like that. Let's take a look at it now. Yeah, I'll go ahead and delete this and move this over. So I'll hit the 7 key and then the 5 key and the Z key as well, and I'll select this one piece, Shift D, Y, and move it on up here. Now if you're having trouble getting the object right where you want it, it seems to be moving too quickly for you, you can press the Shift key while you're moving and it will move it in smaller increments, just a little bit slower, so you can place it just where you want it. All right. So there we go. There's the beginnings of our couch. Now the next thing we need to do is UV map it.